Got another franchise reboot, the return of one of our favorite directors, puppets, and more this week. Let's kick down the door of the screening room.
Are either one of these any good?
Wow, this is a good movie.
It's pretty good.
Well, the director from yesterday doesn't think so.
It stinks.
He's sorry. You waste our film.
It's so bad.
Welcome in. This is the Screening Room Podcast, and she is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And we're from madwolf.com. And let's start off on the big screen, rebooting a horror series 30 years or so in the making. It's the latest, I Know What You Did Last Summer.
First up on the big screen, a group of friends is terrorized by a stalker who knows about a gruesome incident from their past. I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah, 1997 was the first of the I Know What You Did Last Summers. And I don't know how many, I know they had one sequel. How many sequels have there been since then?
I think there's just been one sequel.
Oh, just one?
Yeah.
Okay.
There has been on the big screen. Yeah.
Well, they've got a new group of good-looking young 20-somethings and some familiar faces, maybe more than you're expecting in this new reboot. And it's interesting because in 1997, of course, the original franchise was feeding off of the success that the Scream franchise had. You know, Scream came out 1 year earlier in 96, the original Scream, and just really reset the whole horror scene in such an inventive and smart way. And it's interesting that the original I Know What You Did Last Summer had success basically trotting out the same tropes that the Scream franchise was deconstructing.
Yes. You know what, though? The original it's not a bad film. It's a simple movie, but that's because it's based on like adolescent literature. It's based on a very simple story.
Yeah.
But it had some interesting shot making and some, and Anne Heche was great and terrifying in it, but this one, nothing.
Yeah, there's many curious things about this one, starting with the fact that it's rated R. I don't really know why. It's, I suppose, for the blood, but they could have easily toned a little bit of that down and gotten a PG-13 rating. But and even the blood that there is, the kills aren't very inventive. You've still got the slicker wearing, hook wielding marauder, which is interesting. You know, the face is always in the shadows, so you never know until the final reveal who it's going to be. But the setup right away from the setup is just dumb. I mean, you've got these kids, these young 20-somethings, and they're involved in another fatality where they feel so much at fault that they have to hide the whole thing. I don't really know why. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police officer, but it seemed like the situation here was not that dire.
But pedestrians always have the right of way.
That's a good thing to remember. But at any rate, they feel that, oh, no, we have to cover this whole thing up. You know how that goes. The same premise from the original. And so they start getting the notes, I Know What You Did Last Summer. Now, this one is set in the same town, Southport, North Carolina, seaside town. And part of the narrative that could have been interesting, I think, that they weave in is the fact that in the years since, the local government has tried to, first of all, just erase any bit of history from the old killings.
1997.
Because when in the late 90s, when that happened, all the property values went in the toilet. You know, that this town was just, on its last legs. They've been able to build it back up by erasing that history, whitewashing that history, because there are a lot of white faces here, and gentrifying the whole area. So that's okay. That's fertile ground for maybe some commentary there we can work with. Plus, in this group of friends, there's one that's on the outs because her father lost all their money years ago, and so she's not really friends as much with the rich kids anymore. So there's something there about privilege and gentrification and things like that could have been mined for better use, but isn't really. And it just, it trots out all of these same old tropes that can be fun. We've shown there can be fun. I mean, many films have shown they can be fun, but it's just the same old stuff. And like I said, the kills aren't very interesting. The direction, pretty uninteresting. They do bring back Jennifer Love Hewitt. Her character has since become a law professor, but so the kids that are involved this time reach out to her to come back and help. So it's a kick to see her again. The Freddie Prinze Jr. character, he's still in town. He's remained in town, and he runs a local bar. And then they also find a way to bring Sarah Michelle Gellar back in a pretty fun cameo. That's one of the moments where they have some fun with it, and then stay through the credits, because about halfway through you find another familiar face if you're a fan of the franchise, and a clear signal that they have plans to take this further if the box office warrants it. But this is really just for the 90s nostalgia people. Really, I don't see much other use for it. I mean, the R rating kind of cuts down on a new younger audience, I think, that they might have tried to get to with a PG-13 rating. But for the 90s nostalgia, and I totally get it.
Yeah.
I'm nostalgic for certain time periods and film franchises. So you might have fun with this. I mean, we know some people, we talked to some this morning, that, they're going to go plan to go see it. And that's great.
Yep.
Enjoy it.
Yep.
But it was really uninspired, I think, just for a couple of threads that could have been mined for more. The tension really isn't there. The inventive kills isn't really there. And it's a wasted opportunity, I think, for something that could have been more, realizing what this franchise was built on the backs of Scream and on the backs of tropes that have been deconstructed and winked at in a fun way. This one just doesn't do it. It's like, hey, this worked before. Here's more of the same.
Trot it back
You've seen
out.
it. Here it is. And there's always the fun of guessing, I suppose, who the killer is, and that's fun. But so much of that is even lazy. I mean, they get around certain plot points just with silly,
Hey, did I tell you?
yeah, just with
lazy.
silly conversations. Some of the scenes are almost like somebody realized, oh, there's a continuity error. How do we get rid of that? Well, let's put a couple of characters having lunch or dinner, and they just say, hey, did you hear about? And that just fixes it up. Lazy. Just really lazy storytelling.
Yeah.
Not exciting horror storytelling, and pretty much a letdown. All but for the nostalgic among you, for the new I Know What You Did Last Summer, and that is it's in theaters starting this weekend.
Yeah.
Next up, the latest from Ari Aster. In May of 2020, a standoff between a small-town sheriff and mayor sparks a powder keg as neighbor is pitted against neighbor in Eddington, New Mexico. It's Eddington.
Yeah, Ari Aster, just 3 movies, has quickly become one of our favorites. 4. Beau was Afraid. Right. So he did, of course, Hereditary. He did Midsummer, Beau was Afraid, and what's the one that I'm missing? One that I'm
this. Yeah. Eddington.
I guess I meant 3 before this.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Can I count to 4? But yeah, they've all been great. Of course, Hereditary and Midsummer horror movies. Beau was Afraid. Some people counted that among a horror movie. I really didn't, but I guess I can understand how people would.
It really changes genre as it goes along.
Yeah.
Beau was Afraid.
This one kind of does too.
A little bit.
This one kind of does too. I wouldn't call this one a horror movie, but more of a throwback Western, and then it's got some comedic moments, and then becomes a thriller.
Yes, it's actually I think he intentionally inverts the sort of the tropes of the Western in this film, set in a small town in New Mexico. And Joaquin Phoenix, always great, of course, stars Beau was Afraid, is the sheriff. And it is May of 2020, which is to say we are just right now figuring out what to do about COVID. And man, does Ari Aster nail that time period. That sort of people are just about to fall off that ledge. Oh. And it is really fascinating when you watch how he reminds us how modern society and sort of all of these archetypal figures that did not exist prior to this all exist now. And so Joaquin Phoenix is the sheriff who won't wear a mask, doesn't think all of these precautions are necessary because there is no COVID in Eddington yet that they know of. And I can recall that,
Oh yeah.
And then Pedro Pascal plays the mayor who, is imposing all of this, saying, yes, let's follow what the governor is saying that we should do. He's saying 6 feet apart, only so many people inside at a time, lockdown. And he's got a teenage boy who teenagers really hated lockdown and really missed getting the chance to hang out with each other. And so little by little, it's really that sparks a lot of, and at the same time, the fact that those of us who were inside were online all of the time, right? And then, and all of the, like everything else that sprouted up at that time. So like the George Floyd murder plays a big part in this because he's a small town sheriff. And, then there's then there's, protesters. And I mean, Ari Aster makes so many points. It's just a microcosm of society in this one little town. And often it works really well. And other times he has so much going on that he just creates an entire type of human being that is boiled down to this one caricature that is basically defined by a single clever, but a single line of dialogue. So it feels like a little bit much. And in those instances feels comedic. But the story comes down to that essentially the biggest problem he sees is what happened to society when older white men suddenly felt their vulnerability. Like the sheriff is saying, no, we're not going to do this. And then the entire population is like, no, yes, we are. And he felt like he was the one people were looking at with disdain and hatred and fear. And it was very discombobulating. And it's really fascinating the way this film, the way Ari Aster and this really very talented cast recreates everything in a way that goes, no, that's exactly what happened. And, and in a way that it's not exactly that it foretells what is to come. It's not like he's looking back at it. It's like he's just set you there. And it does turn into a proper sort of Western. There's a big shootout. It just takes a turn like that. And it is a thriller with a lot of gunfire. And I don't think it ever entirely loses its comedic tone, not completely, but it absolutely dives headlong into a thriller. I don't think this movie is going to work for everybody, but Ari Aster does not work for everybody. Right. He simply is a director who doesn't care. He's working to make you uncomfortable. And for a lot of people, that doesn't make for a fun cinematic experience. It looks great. The cast is great.
And Emma Stone.
Yeah, a little bit wasted, I think, Emma Stone. She's great in it, but she doesn't have a very big part. Austin Butler, even more wasted. He's got maybe 2 scenes. But it's actually a pretty big cast because there's a lot of people in this town and everybody does a great job. And it looks great. And it really turns into almost like, some of the shot making at the end, once it becomes like a shootout, it's especially impressive if you ever made a film because you know that behind the camera that is circling the character, the entire crew has to move behind the camera so it doesn't get in the shot. It is pretty impressive, the 360 that he does toward the end of this. And
and it's also 2.5 hours long, which puts some people off. And I'll be honest, if some people just don't want to return to COVID days yet, I get that.
Totally do.
I get that because I certainly understand how it's going to affect art. People have been making movies already about the COVID experience for a while now.
Since lockdown, we were getting them during lockdown.
Yeah, because people had to make movies during lockdown. That's why you saw so many two-handers and just very limited sets and things like that. Totally understand because people have to continue to be creative. Creative people do, but it's a situation where it reminds me that we're not going to sort out, if we ever do, just how COVID affected us all for decades.
Oh my!
But this is part of working through it.
Yeah.
And a filmmaker as good as he is something that I am interested in. Yeah. Maybe it didn't have to be 2.5 hours, but like you said, he is not interested in making people comfortable.
No.
And that's okay.
Yeah, it is.
Art that provokes people is fine.
Yeah.
But it can be divisive. I think Beau is Afraid.
Was divisive. One of the things I appreciate about Eddington is that it is not a movie where at the end the movie is going, oh, the liberals were right, or oh, the conservatives were right. No. What he's basically saying is that everybody's stupid. We all did dumb things. No, you know what? That's a flippant thing to say. He's blaming opportunists. From all walks of life. People saw an opportunity and they took it to the detriment of the people around them.
Mm-hmm. And even his 2 horror films were also divisive within the horror community because you have that, quote, elevated horror, and then the other group, a lot of horror fans saying nothing happened. So he's just a filmmaker that's not afraid to go certain places, and it's going to put off a certain amount of the audience, but that's okay because show me something that everybody likes.
Yeah, envelope pushing is always worth it.
Yes, it really
bold moves.
Exactly, always appreciate bold moves. In filmmaking, all sorts of art. So, and that is the latest from Ari Aster. It is in the big screens starting this weekend, called Eddington.
And next, a Palestinian refugee living on the fringes of society in Athens gets ripped off by a smuggler and seeks out to seek revenge into a land unknown.
Yeah, this is a really good and resonant film that takes a lot of familiar elements in storytelling in general, in songs, in movies, and stories, and poems, and gives them a more urgent, more timely wrap around them. Because we've seen a type of story about lovable losers trying to get that score. They know this is going to be the one, and then we're going to be set, and all our plans are going to be in motion, and everything is going to be fine. And we're all going, really? Is that how it's going to work out?
Yeah.
And this one is set within a backdrop of exiled people, and invites in this intimate story. It invites a larger conversation, because you've got these two Palestinian cousins, and they're in Greece, and they are snatching purses and doing these two-bit crimes and doing anything they can to get money to get fake passports from a guy in town who can do that, and then get tickets to Germany. Because the one cousin, sort of the guy that takes the lead with the plans, he's got a wife and he's got a child in Lebanon. And the plan is to get the two cousins to Germany, and then they'll reunite the family, and they're all going to open a cafe because the wife is such a great cook, and that's going to be their plan, and they're going to be set. Well, the other cousin is just trying to stay off drugs. He's been off drugs for about 30 days, and that's a big milestone, and he's trying to stay off. So they go back and forth trying to do these little crimes and tell each other that, we're going to get there. We just have to find a way. And then they get some unexpected friendships with a couple of other characters. There's a young 13-year-old boy from Gaza who is looking to get out. And then there's a local Greek cougar, this older woman, who's actually played by, and I forget her name. She's an actress who played the cold-hearted woman in The Lobster, who was great.
Yeah.
Gotta love The Lobster.
Oh, yeah.
Who was hooked. It was paired with Colin Farrell for a while.
Yeah, the sociopath.
Yeah. So she's the cougar, and so then the ringleader cousin hatches a plan that that involves the cougar and involves the child, and he thinks is going to score them the money, more than enough money to get the passports, the good ones, and get themselves out of there and into Germany and set their plan in motion. And of course, we know that things are probably not going to work out because we've seen so many of these stories before. And I wanted to look up, the writer-director and give him credit. So I'm going to scan. Maybe you can do it while to a land unknown. The filmmaker, the writer-director, is not shy about his influences, especially with some American cinema and American stories. And it's Madi Fleifel, and I probably butchered that, and I'm so sorry, is the writer-director. But one American classic film especially comes into this with a real, very note for note, almost shot for shots homage. I don't want to mention what it is because that'll give away too much, but it's the way that he takes these elements and gives them this new context. Yeah. And it's always good. I think movies always work better when you take something smaller and try to speak in more universal terms and try to cover such a broad brush. Let's work intimate, and then you can allow the audience to make those connections. And I think he does that here because you've got all the elements involved. The one child is from Gaza. The cousins are Palestinian, and the whole undercurrent of exiled people from anywhere looking for a place to belong. They're wandering souls looking for a place to belong, looking for a place to start their own lives that they can call their own. And that's what the film is speaking to through these few characters in an intimate situation. So I think it's a well done, a well crafted way of all these familiar elements that we've seen in movies going back, noir thrillers, dramas going back decades. With these lovable losers, this is going to be my score. I know it is, and give them a new context. It works and makes it very timely and very relevant. So I think it's a well done film, foreign language film, obviously, foreign film in select theaters. I think this was not streaming yet that I know of, but it's in select theaters and definitely worth checking out. It's called To a Land Unknown.
Next is the debut of M. Beth Davis as a writer-director. It depicts 8-year-old Bobo's life on her family's Rhodesian farm during the Bush War's final stages. It explores the family's bond with Africa's land and the war's impact on the region and individuals through Bobo's perspective. It's called Don't Let's Go to the Dogs Tonight.
It's quite a title.
It is. You kind of have to read that twice. Did I get that right? But it's based on a book that I was not familiar with, a very much loved book.
Yeah, it's a memoir from the point of view of Bobo, this 8-year-old girl. And Don't Let's Go to the Dogs Tonight is because Bobo's mother loves her animals. She loves her horse. She loves the cattle that's on the farm. And she loves the many, many dogs that populate their very rundown, open air, dirty home. This little Bobo, she's borderline feral. I mean, she's just filthy, but God, it's such a great performance. And I think that one of the reasons the movie works as well as it does is that it is told from her eyes, from Bobo's point of view. Beth Davis plays her mother, and it is 1980 Rhodesia, which means it's just about to be Zimbabwe. This is a family, a white family that's lived on this farm. We're not sure how long, but we do know that the anxiety is that they're not going to have it much longer once the government changes hands to a government that is less friendly with the colonizers. And Beth Davis' character in particular is just desperate to keep the land that she feels very connected to, the land and the farm and these animals. But the truth is that it's not hers. You know what I mean? She believes it's hers. She bought it, but she didn't buy it from anybody who owned it. And so that conflict, and we're coming in, the film is right at the end of the very bloody long years conflict between colonizers and the militia. And so you just see the impact of that on everybody involved. But again, I think the fact that it's all through the eyes of this wild little girl who's just not really looked after. She's certainly not very reined in. And the way she sees everything with curiosity and no judgment is fascinating. And it's a really just, David shows such instinct with visual storytelling here. And it doesn't just speak to that time period. It speaks to family dysfunction, coming of age, not her own, but she has an older sister. It's racism, obviously, colonialism or colonization, obviously, but in a way that is incredibly just sort of hypnotic, almost magical, again, because of the childlike perspective. So I was very impressed by Don't Let's Go to the Dogs Tonight, which is also in theaters.
Little Lexi is played by, Little Bobo is played by Lexi Venter.
Yes.
And I believe
I think it is her first performance.
Another great child performance.
Yeah.
We've seen these now for several years. They keep finding these kids.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And
because she shoulders the whole film.
Yeah. Yeah. And the one we just talked about, To a Land Unknown, the actor who plays the young 13-year-old, a good performance. Yeah. So kudos to all these young kids.
That's right.
Don't Let's Go to the Dogs Tonight. If you're a fan of the book, then obviously you want to check this out. But even if you're not, it's worth seeing in select theaters now.
A documentary is next. It's the story of Shari Lewis's life and body of work from the director of Love, Gilda. It's called Shari and Lamb Chop.
Well, Brandon Thomas reviewed this one for us at madwolf.com and loved it.
Yeah, I remember liking Love, Gilda.
Oh, yeah.
A couple of years ago. So, yeah, this was Shari Lewis. Who doesn't remember Shari Lewis and Lamb Chop? But as with many of these, there's a bigger story behind it. And that's when Brandon thought the movie really shined, when it got away from, obviously that's how she became famous and was on all the shows with Lamb Chop. But there's much more underneath, and the movie tears into that.
Yeah, it talks a lot about her life, the darker periods of her life, her other talents. She was a magician and dancer as well. But also, I think it's interesting to see the way that, you know, she started off in the 1950s in television, so quite a trailblazer. And the way that through these innocent puppets, she could bring up much more important issues than were actually being covered, and
Yeah.
that only kids were really taking them in. Because I remember there's one where Lamb Chop says she's going to be president, and the other puppet says you can't because you're a girl. We've had 35 presidents and none have been a girl. And Lamb Chop says, well, that's the problem.
Mhm.
You know, and I thought, wow, 1956, well done, Shari Lewis.
Yeah, the director is Lisa DiPolito, who did Love Gilda. And yeah, you want to check out Brandon's review. It's up at madwolf.com, but he gave it 4 stars.
Yes,
yeah, he loved it. And this one, I believe, is streaming.
It is day and date, so you can see it in select theaters. We have it here in town at Gateway Film Center.
Okay.
And you can also stream it.
So day and date, and it's Shari and Lamb Chop.
Yep,
out there now.
And a mystery thriller set in a small town. A solitary woman is haunted by voices that lead her to assassinate ill-intended people and get away with it, until her last kill sucks her down a rabbit hole riddled with corruption, trafficking, and visions from the beyond in St. Clare.
Well, unfortunately, St. Clare just made me think of St. Maud, which is a great film.
Yeah.
This one, not so much.
No. Adam Barney reviewed this one for us at madwolf.com. And it's Bella Thorne plays a young woman who believes she is called by God to kill. She thinks that she has there's the voice of a man that she had inadvertently killed, and that voice is helping her to pick out other murderers or ne'er-do-wells that are worthy of being killed. It just doesn't hold up. There are a lot of obvious comparisons to Dexter, right? A serial killer who's killing other killers with the help of sort of a voice and, from the beyond. But the like mystery beneath, like, are they really? How is she find? Like, that's never unraveled. It's just a side plot. It's beside the point. The actual mystery about these men that she's killing. Which might have given the film a little bit more meat. Instead, it's basically just Bella Thorne sort of posing as she does. And there's just not a lot to it.
Yeah, and it's based on, I guess, some young adult
books.
And I think in the books, Claire is 16 years old. So that's a different wrinkle. So they obviously aged the character a little bit. But Adam thought that it seemed like a pilot for a series that never really gets anywhere. Yeah. And he didn't care for it at all. Maybe fans of the book can find something in it, but Adam thought it was just not worth checking out much. But I think this one is streaming as well.
It is streaming.
And that is called St. Clare, which is out there now. And,
but you know what? St. Maud is very much worth
my
checking
Lord,
out.
St. Maud.
If you haven't watched it, you should.
Please check out St. Maud. Schlocketeer, Daniel Baldwin, out of town he's out of pocket.
Yeah,
he's unavailable.
He's unavailable today. It's not my fault. It's not because I forgot to send him the link today.
As far as we know. We'll check in with Daniel next week for some Schlocketeer action.
That's
we
right.
will schlock and roll again next week. So speaking of next week, we've got another big release, more Pedro Pascal.
That's right.
Back with another one, The Fantastic Four First Steps. Seems like we've been seeing trailers for this one for quite a while.
Yes.
And I'm going to be open-minded. I'm going to be honest. I'm not that excited about it, but there's been other movies where I wasn't excited. Well, Superman.
We didn't expect to like Superman, and we loved it.
Yeah, loved it. So
yeah.
Open minds.
That's right.
And open hearts for The Fantastic Four.
Also,
First Steps.
Also, Pete Davidson horror movie, The Home. Very excited about that one.
Also, Happy Gilmore 2. This is especially of note to our friend Brad, who told us 6 months ago, no, it's out now. It's streaming now. Happy Gilmore 2 is out. It wasn't out 6 months ago, Brad. It wasn't. But it's coming out next week on Netflix, where Adam Sandler is doing a lot of his work now. So Happy Gilmore 2. Shooter's back. Everybody. Bob Barker, unfortunately, not back. R.I.P. Bob. But, well, who knows? I mean, they brought back Sarah Michelle Gellar in the new Know What You Did Last Summer. So I don't know. We'll see. That's next week. That's happening.
She's not actually dead, though.
No, she's not. You're right. But, AI, man.
Oh, my God. So anyway, House on Eden, which is a Shudder film, but I think it's going to get theatrical release.
Okay. One called Folk Tales.
Yeah, another horror movie. Shoshana.
And Monster Island.
That is another Shudder one. And it's just a couple of actors and some nasty beasties.
Ooh, okay. Because the title kind of made me think maybe a kid's movie, but it sounds like it's not. All right, no kids allowed. That's next week, though. What about this week? You want to tell me that we're wrong about I Know What You Did Last Summer? That's fine. Let's talk about that if you love that franchise. Or Eddington or anything else that we're talking about this week. Please keep the conversation going. You can always find us easily on all the socials. It's Mad Wolf Columbus. Of course, the main website is madwolf.com, where you can check out all of the written reviews from us and from Adam and Brandon, everybody that's part of the Mad Wolf pack. So check that out and enjoy the movies. Enjoy the rest of the summer. Man, we're into the middle of July now. What's going on?
It's crazy.
Let's try to make it count. So we'll talk again next week. And until then, be well. She is Hope Madden.
He's George Wolf.
And this is the Screening Room Podcast.
See ya.
I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner.